Are you tired of the marketing guessing game? Does your website feel more like a digital billboard than a client magnet? If you're nodding along, you're not alone. And it's time to stop the uncertainty and start getting real results. Let's talk about your marketing spend. Are you just shelling out money every month and crossing your fingers? Do you ever wonder what impact your marketing is really having on your revenue? Well, it's time to take the guesswork out of the equation with Rise Up Media. We've been working with them for over a year, and the feedback from our fellow members has been fantastic. Rise Up Media is here to take your marketing to the next level. They'll even perform a full audit of your online presence, giving you the good, the bad, and even let you in on what your competition is up to that you're missing out on. And the best part, there's no obligation, no catch, no pressure. If you decide to work with them, their contracts are month to month. That's right. No long-term commitments tying you down. So what are you waiting for? To learn more about how Rise Up Media can transform your firms, visit riseupmedia.com/maxlaw, and Rise is spelled with a Z. riseupmedia.com/maxlaw.
All right, we've got Kevin Cheney back, and this is going to be a really fun discussion because this all started from a conversation in Facebook, and so we're going to do something fun with it. We brought on two people to discuss this. We're going to bring them on one at a time. So Kevin is going to go first. You get to be first when it comes to this, but first we'll have Kevin. He's going to talk about unlimited PTO and why he believes it works. And then next you're going to hear from Billie Tarascio, and she's going to talk about how she tried to implement it into her firm and then made the decision to get rid of it. So that's the lay of the land as to how this is going to work. So the question I'm going to ask both of you, so Kevin, you get to answer this one first. And I'm not going to show these to Billie. Billie's not going to know any of your response. But here's the question. Let's go back to the beginning. Or actually, I'm sorry. Let me back up a second. I'm going to start by putting it out there right away. Where do you stand on unlimited PTO right now and why?
Great question, and I'm glad this came from a Facebook comment, as so many intriguing topics do. I'm very much in favor of unlimited PTO. My firm has had unlimited PTO since we hired our very first employee, which would have been about 8 years ago. And so it was just 3 of us back then. We now have 37 employees total and still use unlimited PTO to this day. I think that in the right firm and in the right context, it offers the maximum upside to employees and really, I think in my view, sets the tone of the kind of firm I want to have, which is where we treat people like adults and we give them freedom. And at the same time, we give them high expectations and ask them to meet them.
What was going on in the business back then at the very beginning that made you even consider it? Like, was there a specific pattern or a certain problem that you were trying to solve? I mean, or was this something you just came up from the very beginning? If so, why?
So I had read, and I can't remember the name of the book off the top of my head, but I had read the Netflix book and knew that Netflix had kind of pioneered the unlimited PTO policy. My firm started with my partner and I right out of law school. We never worked for any other firm as lawyers. And so when we went to hire our first employee, we had no idea about like what benefits we should offer, what the rules and procedures should be. And we basically, I remember in the interview they asked like, well, what's your vacation policy? Like, how many days do I get? And my partner and I kind of looked at each other and we're like, I mean, there's really no limit. I mean, take vacation when you want. We think vacation's important. I love to take vacation. I think it's really important to reset and take breaks to be a productive employee or even a productive owner. And so we basically were like, don't do anything crazy like trying to take a full year off or, leave before the week you have a really important trial or court hearing. But other than that, as long as you're getting all your work done, I don't really care how many vacation days you took. And so it was during that interview that we basically formed the policy on the spot, and we've used it ever since.
Okay, so you hit right at the heart of where I've heard a lot of criticisms of it. How do you define crazy? Is that something you have in your office manual? Like, how do you define crazy?
So no, we do not define it. Now, what we do is, so in order to use the unlimited PTO, you do have to fill out a vacation request form. And that does get reviewed by the department head of whatever department you work in, or if it is a department head, it gets reviewed by me. And it does have to be approved. But basically, I believe it works well on the trust system. And I believe that trust between owners and management and rank and file employees is paramount to having a good culture and running a good firm. And so there's no real definition, and everyone's a little different. We have a lot of employees that love to just take long weekends. So they occasionally take a Friday or a Monday off. We have other people that want to, take a 2 week vacation to Europe. So our top litigation paralegal is actually doing 13 days in Scotland and Ireland right now as we're shooting this interview. To me, what I define as crazy as it's not going to negatively impact the firm in a substantial way. And what I mean by that, it's not necessarily how many days you're taking, it's when are you taking it, right? So if you're a trial lawyer, you obviously can't take vacation the week that you have a trial. That to me is pretty common sense. It also means that you're getting your tasks done. So, for example, our litigation paralegal had a bunch of initial disclosures due while during this 13-day period. So she simply got them all done before she left. She made sure that she had one or two employees covering her. So if anything popped up that was super important while she was gone, they would be able to cover. And so as long as you're doing those things and you have trust in the relationship between the employee and the employer, I've never seen in 10 years, we've never had a situation arise where anything felt like it was crazy. And that, I don't think in 10 years we've ever denied a single vacation request. We've approved 100% of them over 10 years.
From a written policy standpoint, did you put any guardrails in place, or is it truly open ended?
In our policy handbook, it does say that while there is no cap on the amount of days you can take PTO, it is subject to manager approval. And the example that I give to people where we wouldn't approve is, for example, we have 3 intake people and we have one receptionist that acts as a backup intake person. So we really have 4. Our firm could not function with less than 2 of them here. So if 2 of them had already requested vacation and then a third wanted to be off during that same time, we would likely have to deny it and say, we can't, the firm has to have at least 2 of the 4 of you here. So that's the example that I give. And I always tell people, you should get your vacation requests in early because it's going to be first come, first served in that scenario. But thankfully, that has never arisen. People can see on the calendar when other people are requesting off, and people get their requests in, on average about 6 months before they want to take the vacation. And it's always worked really well for us.
So when you first implemented the policy, and whenever you have a new hire that joins the firm, do was there any hesitation, or has there ever been any hesitation from an employee wanting to use it because they just don't truly believe it's unlimited?
Yes, I do think that it takes a little bit for people to really understand the culture here. And it's not just that, like, there are several policies that we have where people are like, really? Like, that's the rule? I tell people, like, if you want any snacks or drinks, like literally anything, just tell our receptionist, we'll order whatever sodas, whatever snacks. You want fancy pens, you want cool, sparkling notepads, like any of that. Like, literally, we'll buy whatever you want. Just tell them. And people always start with like a really small order. And then I think they see, like, we have cup of noodles and all kinds of random stuff that people have asked for. And then people get a little bit more comfortable with it. So I try to stress in the onboarding process, because I'm meeting everyone when we onboard them, at least for like an hour, just to get to know them as the managing partner. I really say, like, look, if anything, I have to encourage some of my employees to take more vacation because I feel like a few of them don't take enough. But I tell them, me personally, last year, I think I took 9 weeks of vacation last year. And, I don't think everyone's going to take that much, but like we expect that you're going to take at least 2 to 3 weeks because we don't want you to burn out. We don't want you to be stressed. Like we want you to be able to go and do whatever you want, whether that's a travel, whether that's go sit on a beach, or really, if you want to take a day off and just sit at your house and do nothing, that's cool too. What we care is we want people working at 100% efficiency while they're in the office. And when you go long periods of times without breaks and without vacation, even the best employees start going down to 90, 80, 70% because they just get a little burned out. And so, we really try to stress that. But I think that's something that they learn when they see other employees doing it, when they see everyone around them takes vacation, when they see that every vacation request is approved, and they see that the firm doesn't burn down, right? Like I feel like a lot of people worry so much about, oh my gosh, what are we going to do when this person is out for a week? And it's like, take a deep breath. 95% of the time, it's going to be fine if you have solid systems, if you have solid planning, and people do the right thing and kind of prepare for the time they're going to be out. I think a lot of people worry. Is their worry is worse than the actual reality of the situation.
I'm sure it varies from person to person, but on average, whenever you think back to the beginning and your expectations as to how people would use it, on average, do people tend to use it more or less or about the same? How have people reacted compared to what your expectations were?
It really is all over the map, I would say. I would say on average, it's pretty much met my expectations. Um, at minimum, I think people tend to take 2 weeks. And if people aren't taking 2 weeks, we may go talk to them and say, hey, I think you need to take more vacation next year. Like looking at how much you took this year, I think you deserve a little bit more of a break. Um, it also really it varies a little bit between employees. I mean, the reality is there are some employees that financially, can afford to take longer trips, right? Like an entry level non-lawyer probably doesn't have the means to take a 3 week Japan trip, like just to, and not that they're obviously getting paid while they're gone. It's just the cost of that trip is relatively substantial. And so, as people work here longer and they get raises and they make more money, I think that opens up their ability to have a little bit more travel. But what's been really interesting for me is just the different ways people use it. Like I I could not stand going on a trip longer than 2 weeks. Like by the end of the second week, I want to get back home. I love my house. I love my bed. I love my job. I love what I do. And after 2 weeks, like I just miss it. So I'm much more of a let's take a 1 week vacation. That's my prime sweet spot. There are other people that love to take 1 or 2 days more frequently, and just have that long weekend. There are some people that take it randomly in the middle of the week, like they want to go to a concert that happens to be on a weeknight and they want to go out and have a good time and they just want to take the next day off. They don't want to worry about getting enough sleep. And so they're not even going anywhere. They're literally just at their house, hanging out, sleeping in, and that's totally fine. And then we have other people that really do love the longer trips. And so once, maybe twice a year, they're taking, 2 weeks. But on average, I would say that our firm probably averages 3 to 4 weeks if you average it out, every year amongst all employees. That's generally around what people are taking.
I wonder if you considered, or maybe you already do this, tracking the average number of days off per employee as like a KPI. Have you thought about that?
We do not track it as a KPI. We kind of informally track it mostly, because I would say the one criticism of unlimited PTO that is most persuasive to me as a person who has always been very pro labor, pro union, pro employee, is that it harms employees because people take less. So of all the critiques that I've heard, that one is the most persuasive to me, is that like, am I somehow harming my employees by having this policy? And so we do informally track it so that we can have conversations for the people who are not taking enough, to be like, hey, last year you took 4 days off. We would love to get that to a minimum of 10 next year, just so you're having those breaks. And they're like, oh, great. Yeah, I didn't even realize I'd only taken 4 days. And we were like, yeah, let's just take a little bit more next year.
What are your thoughts on requiring like a minimum threshold? So you must take X number of days off. Like, so it's unlimited, but you have to at least take this number of days off. What about something like that?
We have thought about it. One of the advantages of unlimited PTO is the lack, you don't have to do such insane tracking. Like, I don't have to do any measurements in my payroll system of hours earned and hours off. When someone takes PTO at my firm, it looks the exact same on their paycheck as if they were here. Like, there's no formal tracking mechanism. So I wouldn't necessarily be excited to have that. I also think there are exceptions to every rule. So, if someone came to me and said, Kevin, I really want, I'm not going to be taking much, if any, vacation this year because next year I want to go to Africa for a month. I wouldn't micromanage that. Ultimately, we want to treat people like adults. We want to give people as much freedom as possible to decide how they can best structure their lives and then execute well for the firm. And as long as they're executing well, I'm not really one to, second guess it or put any type of minimum other than I will have a conversation with people and say, hey, I think you should take more, but it's not like a requirement. Like I'm not going to any force anyone to take vacation other than, letting them know that we encourage it. We want them to, and they're more than welcome to take as much time as they want. And that's worked well for us.
I think what you just said is a really important thing that people don't think about. The tracking part of it is kind of a pain in the butt because we scrapped unlimited PTO years ago, but we do have to I mean, we have a vast system that tracks time and we have like requests off, all that kind of stuff. It's kind of a pain in the butt sometimes when it comes to tracking everything. And if there's a disagreement about, no, I think I've got 7 days, or no, we think you have 5 days, and figuring all that stuff out, that's kind of a pain in the butt. That's why we went away with, we just substantially increased salaries instead of going with a bunch of bonuses. We had a ridiculously extreme bonus system that was just such a pain in the butt to track. We just like, okay, let's just raise salaries substantially so that we don't have to worry about it. It was like that was our fix to it. So that's essentially what you're doing. It's just from a different, yeah, instead of talking about salaries, you're talking about time off. So
Yeah.
I think it's a smart way of looking at it.
Well, and the other problem with the tracking and the earning stuff is like, what if I hire a really great employee, right? So someone comes in, they interview very well. We average for our non-lawyer positions, we average 150 to 200 applications for every single open role that we post. And so by the time you're making it to the top 10 for an interview and the top three, those people are, at least to us, appear all to be A-level players. Now, do they all end up being A's after you hire them? No, of course not. But we feel like we have extremely good candidates. But what if we hire one of them and they say, hey, a month after I'm supposed to start, I got a friend getting married in Italy. I need to take 10 days off. And it's like, well, if they have to earn it, are we literally saying, well, you can't do that until you've worked here for 9 months because that's how long you have to work here in order to earn 10 days? Like, we've always, for the same reason our health insurance kicks right in right away, our 401k kicks right in right away. The day you start here, you are now a full employee. You don't have, there's no waiting periods, there's no vesting periods. Like, on day one, you're an equal. And so to make people say, well, you have to work here a certain length of time, and then I always get people be like, well, are you worried people are going to abuse it? They're just going to get the job to get like a paid vacation. And I'm like, if that happens, like, that's on me. I have a really bad interview system. I have a really bad filtering. Like, if I'm hiring somebody whose only goal is to abuse it for the free vacation, like, that's an ownership mistake. It's not an employee problem, Like, that's how I view it.
I am curious, have you had anybody that's abused it?
None, not one, not one in 10 years. Have, you know, I we pride ourselves on having extremely low turnover. We've had to fire a few people and we've had a couple of people quit over 10 years. But people, by and large, like, we like them and they like working here. And so the idea that, like, you would harm your other employees by, like, abusing a system, it's just not something that's ever really materialized. And when people bring that up to me, I always ask them like, well, are you sure you have the right team? Like and I think I talked about this at MaxLawCon last year, but like I want a team that would run through a burning building for me. And I want to be a person who would run through a burning building for my team. And if you have that level of trust and that level of, love and compassion for the people that you're working with, the idea that one of them would like intentionally do something to harm you or take advantage of you is not something that I've seen play out in our experience.
Have you ever doubted the policy?
Yes. Yes. I've doubted the policy because of what I mentioned earlier, that it might not be best for employees. That some people would take less than they would have if there was a set amount of days. And the people that take less, if they were ever to leave, don't get paid out their PTO like they would. So there have been times where I really, at least a few times where I really sat down and was like, is this the most pro-employee, pro-labor policy we can have regarding vacations? And we thought about it, and we really thought about it. And like many things, we talked to the team and said, guys, like, I don't think this is true, but there's an argument that I'm screwing you guys over with this policy. What do you think? And all of them were like, we love this policy. Well, this policy was one of the reasons I applied here. I hated at my other job how it was so hard to use my PTO and it was getting denied. And there were all these rules and seniority and all this different stuff. And people like, unlimited PTO, unlimited sick days, really flexible schedules, like all of that is part of the type of people we attract here, the people who want freedom and the people who want to be treated like, a full adult. So it was unanimous not to change the policy.
So when someone does take an extended vacation, how do you balance workload?
How do I balance their workload?
Right. Like so, because someone's got to do the work. So while they're gone, so how do you balance all that?
So it really depends on the position. In pre-litigation, there are very few deadlines. So as long as you've checked your statute of limitations and send like, deadlines for when we need to get demands out and so we can transfer them to lit, there's very few deadlines. We tend to if it's going to be more than like a week, employees would let the clients know and just said, hey, I'm going to Europe for the next 8 days. I'm going to have my phone on me for emergencies, but I'm not bringing my laptop because I really don't want to work while I'm gone. Here's the name of another paralegal or another lawyer, whatever the position is. So part of our request off procedure is you have to put down in your request off who's covering you. And then if in a true emergency, which is extremely rare, we would text them and be like, hey, there's an emergency. We don't know how to solve it. What do we need to do? But 99% of the time, first of all, clients are like, hell yeah, have a great vacation. Like clients are like stoked and like excited for our employees. So like they don't care. They tend to not bring as many problems or issues to us during that time. But if they do, they have an emergency contact and they're like, hey, I know my paralegal is out of town. This is the email. My doctor asked me about XYZ med pay or something like that. Can you help me? And people usually there's like someone will put in the chat like, hey guys, I'm gonna be gone for a week. Who wants to be my emergency contact? And you'll usually get like 3 or 4 people volunteer. Like it's not people don't view it as like extra work. They view it as like doing a solid for a friend, but also protecting a system that allows them to take vacation and not have to take their laptop, not have to worry about.
So you made me think about something. I was talking to an attorney. I think it was Elise Bowie, and I may be getting this wrong. So I'm not an employment attorney. You're not an employment attorney, but I think she told me that Washington State, it is illegal. So you cannot text your employees when they're on vacation. I may have gotten that wrong, but if that is the law, how would you deal with a situation like that?
Wow, I don't know. I don't believe that's the law in Colorado. That would seem to be super extreme to me. I will say, so we do all salary, but we do pay overtime for all non-lawyers. So if you work 40 hours and, you get your 40 hours off for PTO, right? Like for your week vacation. If for some reason in an emergency you would have to work an hour while on vacation, you would get paid time and a half for that hour because you that would be on top of it. So I certainly think employees should be compensated if they're working while they're supposed to be having PTO. Um, Literally not being able to text your employees seems like one of those well-intentioned policies that has a ton of negative benefits for everyone, including the employee. I also think a lot of employees would be like stressed. I mean, they care about
Yeah.
our clients, literally not even be able to like contact anyone at the office, and like if emergency was happening, I don't I don't feel like mine would want that policy. But if that's the policy in Washington, then I would definitely advise following it for any Washington listeners. Don't break the law. Check with an employment lawyer.
I'm kind of chuckling because it's funny. I can't wait for the hate mail and the comments that you're completely wrong about it. I may be wrong about it, but I am curious if that's what it is. But I'll follow up with Elise about it because
Yeah,
that would
it
be
seems
interesting.
interesting. I mean, it seems well intentioned that like, there are a lot of people where you get to take vacation in name only. And I think about like Big Law, where like you're on your honeymoon and the partner calls you and says, sorry, I need you to drop what you're doing and spend 6 hours writing this, and granted, if you're making 250,000 as a first year associate at Big Law, that's part of what you signed up for. That's why you're getting paid that much. But yeah, that would, I think that's like kind of throwing the baby out with the bathwater as far as
I'm pretty sure I know how you're going to answer this question, but this is something I hear about all the time when it comes to accountability. Whenever someone doesn't have set time off, how do you make sure that they're doing all of the work that they need to do on a high level? I'm not talking about while they're away on vacation. I'm talking about because they can take as much as they need within reason. Really, how do you make sure that they are doing a good job overall at a very high level?
various different ways. So I would say really three different ways. First and foremost, KPIs. KPIs are essential to every business, every position in every business, and you measure it. You say, if you're a legal assistant, what's the average time it takes you to get medical records? How many demands do you get out if you're a case manager slash paralegal? On our lit team, we have a rule: no extensions, right? We don't ask for extensions in litigation. I mean, we will if it absolutely is necessary, but that is an extremely negative KPI for to anyone involved in the team that has to ask for one. We want to keep cases moving. And so we don't want 2 weeks to get experts ready or an extra 2 weeks to do initial disclosures. So we measure it. And again, if you take 10 weeks vacation, that would be like one of the highest I've ever seen at our. If you take 10 weeks vacation in a year, but you are performing as well as everybody else who takes 4 or 2 weeks, why do I care? Honestly, I should be having that person teach my other employees how to be more efficient, how to be better. That person should be promoted. Why would, other than this, like, oh, they're not in the office, that seems unfair, which I think is just a lot of I think that's how a lot of owners think. They're like, oh, I don't see them here, or they're not here exactly at 9 a.m. And like, that frustrates me. And I'm like, okay, do you know that's actually harming you though? Or is that just like the vibe? So first of all, it's KPIs. Second of all, it's client feedback. So using products like Case Status or a million other ones where you can send surveys to clients periodically throughout representation and be like, how are we doing as a firm, 1 to 5? If we look at one person and they're getting a bunch of 3s and someone else is getting 5s, that's something we would look into. But again, if someone's getting 5s and is taking twice as much vacation as somebody else, why do I care? They're getting 5s. They're getting their work done, and clients love them. And then finally, we do internal reviews where we solicit feedback from coworkers anonymously. So we send out Google forms that are anonymous and basically say, hey, we're reviewing employee A today. You 12 employees work with employee A to some level degree. How do you think they're doing? How do you think they can get better? What do you think they really excel at? And people will tell you. They're like, hey, employee A doesn't seem to be working as hard as everybody else. That's extremely rare at our firm. But if all three of those, so if they're hitting all their KPIs, clients love them, and their coworkers love them, then I could care less how many days they are on vacation. I really could. Like the I hope for their sake they can take as much as possible without letting any of those three things suffer, because that's what I would want for my own life. And that's what I want for them. And I hope that we've given them an environment where they can kick ass at their job and also have a wonderful, rewarding personal life.
I love that. That's really good. If you were going to start over, okay, you're gonna start from scratch. You're going to re-implement the program. Is there anything that you would do differently?
I would not, but I do think this is important. I think that implementing it from the beginning, like we did, and building it with the firm is different than transitioning to it with an already established firm. And I think that's true not only of paid time off, but also bonus structures, compensation structures, like moving from high salaries and low bonuses to low salaries and high bonuses. It is much harder to switch something that already exists. So I would say that even though I believe in this policy, and I would encourage most firms to adopt it, I think that you have to be more strategic and more thoughtful about how you implement it when you because anytime you change anything, it just kind of can throw people for a loop. Um, and also, you 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 want to be hiring, like we're intentionally looking to hire people who would flourish under our system, right? And there are a lot of people that work for my firm that, in my opinion, would be horrible employees for a lot of other firms. And quite frankly, there's probably some employees at other firms that are A and B level players that would be awful for us because they flourish in an environment with a lot of structure and a lot of rules and a lot of clarity on a lot of things, I think, for a lot of awards. And ours is much more free flowing freedom. Like these are the outputs we need from you, and we give people a lot of freedom. So I think that you got to be careful because you might have a team that really wants the PTO days because those are the types of candidates you were hiring, and then all of a sudden switching to this like freedom flow system, and everyone's going to be like, oh my God, I hate it. So I do think that you need to be smart about transitioning with already established firms. But personally, for me, having started from day one, I would not change anything about how we developed our system.
All right, so I've got one final question for you, and I'm going to try to pick a fight here a little bit because, as you know, we're going
Sure.
to be talking to Billy, who's someone that's had it and gotten rid of it. So, what would you just say to someone like Billy who tried it and said that that it didn't work?
I would say that not every system works for every firm. So I personally believe that unlimited PTO is best is the best system for PTO, both for the owner and management, but also for the staff. I believe that that type of freedom, if done correctly, leads to better results. But I also believe there's multiple ways to skin a cat. And I think there are businesses out there, law firms out there that don't have unlimited PTO, that have great cultures and great and happy employees. And so I don't think this is a situation where one person is right and one person is wrong. I believe this system works. When I meet with young lawyers who are starting firms, this is what I recommend. But certainly, eh, I don't know everyone's firm. I don't know everyone's culture. And so if you have a firm and you've tried it and it didn't work and something else is working better and your employees are happy and you're getting good results, then keep doing that. Keep doing that. I think, it's like trial work. You always hear all these different lawyers and they give you advice on how to try cases. And like talk to 10 different lawyers and you'll hear seven different ideas that are like opposed to each other. And part of learning and part of running a firm is taking in all this information and deciding what works for your individualized situation. So if you're listening to this and you're happy with limited PTO and the standard PTO, and your employees like it and you like it, then don't change. Don't change. You're kicking ass. Keep doing it. Keep doing it.
I knew I'd get a great answer like that out of you. So you're the best. If someone wanted to reach out to you just to pick your brain about your policy and how they might be able to implement it, how do they get in touch with you?
You can always shoot me an email. That's going to be best. So it's Kevin, just Kevin at cghlawfirm.com. I love talking with people. You'll probably see me at a couple of the masterminds this year for the guild. But yeah, hit me up, shoot me an email. I'm happy to chat PTO or really anything else. I had so many mentors help me get from nothing to 37 employees and 8 figures in revenue, and I've loved giving back. So hit me up anytime.
Thanks for doing this, Kevin. Really appreciate it, man. Okay, so we are on the second part of this series when it comes to unlimited PTO, and just to remind everyone, this is where this started from a Facebook post and then some comments, and Kevin Cheney took the position, I'm down to defend unlimited PTO. Billie Tarascio had a different comment. We do not have unlimited PTO. It worked when we were very small, and then it didn't. So we are going to talk about this. So Billie, welcome back. It's good to see you. I'm going to start with this question. And it's just, it's the exact same question I asked Kevin. So I'm going to start with the exact same question. Then I've got other questions for you. But so we're going to start by putting it out there. Where do you stand on unlimited PTO right now, and why?
We do not have unlimited PTO.
And why not?
I mean, my team is like 55 people. That includes 3 law student interns who started today. It is not possible or feasible with a group of 55 people who, 5 of them are intake people. Many of them cover our offices. It's impossible to say, yeah, unlimited PTO, because people have very, very different jobs. Now, for lawyers and paralegals, they have a lot more flexibility. But for jobs that require you to be in an office, unlimited PTO just didn't work from the business's standpoint.
Okay, so at one point you had unlimited PTO. What was it that made you open up to trying it in the first place? So let's start there. So we're going all the way back to whenever you first did it.
It's a wonderful concept. When I first started the firm, our company, what's it called? Like our handbook was called "Don't Be an Asshole." It was that simple. Just don't be an asshole.
I like that. I don't think I knew that. That's really cool. I like
this is
that.
probably the first time we talked about it. Like, show up, do your job, be a good team player. Like, why do I need a handbook? Why do I need to write things down about how people need to dress? Or like, come on. Well, I've learned some things in 16 years, and what I think that means, and what you think that means, and what somebody who's 20 years older than us think that means, and 20 years younger, are all very different things. And employees want certainty and they want clarity. And Don't Be an Asshole didn't offer them certainty or clarity. I was not telling them, how do you be successful at modern law, which people deserve to know.
Sure. I think setting those expectations, I think that's great. When you first implemented it, though, what worked about it early on?
I think when we had unlimited PTO, we were probably 3 to 5 lawyers and maybe 3 staff, and we all worked together every day. And we were such a small team where everyone had the same level of, a similar level of, let's say, longevity, commitment, and it worked. And then you get bigger and you get freeloader problems because humans are humans, and people will take advantage of a system if they can, or some people.
Okay, so we're going to get to the freeloader problem. That was my concern. I'm not going to give you too much of what Kevin told me, because I want to keep this as clean as possible so you don't know what he says. He doesn't know what you're going to say, obviously, because he's already talked. So I want to I'm going to get to the freeloader problem, because that's one of my big questions about about it is my concern about the freeloaders. I guess was there something specific that happened? Was there like a key moment? Like at what point did you start to feel like this isn't really going to work anymore? It's not really working the way we thought it would.
It was probably other people in the office who are very, very conscientious and very, very hard workers who, your A players who were coming to me again and again and being like, this is not working for me. So-and-so is doing blah, blah, blah. And they weren't wrong. And that's, eventually it probably waited too long. I probably waited too long to correct what was this very obvious unfairness and imbalance. And, eventually was just like, yeah, we're not doing that anymore.
Well, before they told you, were you starting to see signs?
Yes, but I tend to be more tolerant than many. So it bothered others more than it bothered me.
Well, say more about that. What do you mean?
Well, other people, my A players, my conscientious people, the people who really care about fairness, the people who are more detail oriented and less big picture. So I'm pretty big picture. Like if the team's working, if things are getting done, like why do the details matter? And that goes back to the don't be an asshole. And it is wrong when you are a leader of many, many people who deserve clarity and fairness and equality. And they want to know that the same standards exist for them that exist for others. And that can't always be true. And I've spent so much time telling, people why fair is the most silliest word ever and nothing is ever fair. And of course we have to be open to people's individual circumstances. But by and large, across the board, there does need to be in an organization some consistent standards and rules that everyone has to follow.
You mentioned the word fairness. Chris Voss talks about in his book Never Split the Difference about using that, never using that word, because that word is such a loaded word. Fairness
Right.
means something different to every single person. But I do wonder when it comes to if you're looking at metrics like KPIs, things like that. Were you able to look at anything specific when it comes to I'm just gonna call them the freeloaders and the A players. Okay, let's just call them that. It may not be completely fair, but that's what we're gonna say. I use the word fair. But let's just use that as the freeloaders and the A players. Were you able to look at the metrics and say, okay, freeloaders they're taking more time but doing less. A players are doing more and their numbers are skyrocketing? Or was there anything about the freeloaders and their lack of being there and taking advantage of it that were forcing the A players' numbers down? Were you able to really point to anything specific when it comes to that?
Good question. And this was so long ago. I mean, it was probably 10 years ago. So it's been a while.
It's funny when you say 10 years, it feels like a lifetime ago with everything that's changed in the last 10 years. It really does. That's a long time ago. Yeah.
I'm thinking back to that office, and it was like just a completely different firm. But no doubt the numbers, revenue collected, client satisfaction of the A players was higher than the freeloaders. And I would have been a better boss if I would have raised my standards earlier.
Now, when it comes to the team dynamics, are we talking about where the freeloaders were was it 50-50? Was it they were a couple people out of the entire team? What percentage of the overall team was taking advantage of this wonderful benefit that the firms that have it? It's a wonderful benefit if you have it, but what percentage of the firm was actually taking advantage of it?
I can't answer that with certainty.
Roughly, give me a ballpark.
Maybe 25%.
Okay, that's still a pretty good number. That's still pretty high.
It's too high. It's too high. And, and then you would have the issue where you hire a new receptionist and they shouldn't have unlimited PTO. They may not even be trained to do the job. And you've given them unlimited PTO. The other thing that this did was it attracted people who were all about the work-life balance. And so I was not attracting, A players. I was putting out there, come work at Modern Law and you'll have the cushiest job ever and we'll take you on cruises and everything's lovely. And it attracted the wrong people.
Okay, so if you were, I'm going off script a little bit because I'm trying to keep the questions as fair between the two of you as possible. I do wonder how much of it, like, do you think it's actually possible to create a culture where that actually works? And if so, how did you, I don't want to say you did things wrong because I'm not saying, I agree. I probably agree with you and your side of things on this, to be completely honest with everybody. But how do you create a culture then that does make it work? Because I struggle with that myself. Like, sounds like a great concept, but I just don't, I struggle with creating that culture that would make it work. So do what you will with that question, because it's kind of all over the place, but it's because there's a lot wrapped into it.
The lawyers can have unlimited PTO. They really can. Their metrics are different. It's, either hours billed or revenue collected. It's client satisfaction. You have responsibilities to your team and judges. I don't care where you work. I don't care when you work. If your team knows what to expect from you, if you're communicating, if your clients have what they need, you essentially have unlimited PTO. But that can't be the policy because there's rules on employers. Employers have to have rules that are the same for all employees. So unlimited PTO does not work for people depending on their jobs. But
Okay,
I'm going to Europe for 3 weeks and I'm not going to not work, but I can take off as much time as I need to because I'm very responsible, right? And that's the same for every single owner, really.
So I'm going to get into something. Kevin and I kind of get into some things that are probably state specific that we probably can't address on here. But I do wonder if you can create a tiered system, like kind of like with health insurance. Like, so we're able to create a tiered system with health insurance where some levels, like managers can have a different level of insurance than people that are like just a standard employee. If you've got an ownership interest, you can have a different level of insurance, of health insurance. So there is that. When it comes to that, I wonder if you're able to create something similar, like a tiered system when it comes to benefits for like time off.
I don't know if you legally can. I know, in our Gusto system, we have to have a policy that applies to everyone. And so the way we've done it is the longer you're here, the more vacation you have. But then unofficially, lawyers and paralegals to a certain extent can have unlimited vacation, and just because we also have a flexible work environment. So that's the way that we have been able to balance the benefits of unlimited PTO and not have archaic rules about what you must do. I must see you in this office at this time. That's not the thing. But I can't give unlimited PTO to my intake team, my marketing team, my administrators, my HR team, because the job just doesn't allow it.
Okay, so you start to get these rumblings, right? People are starting to say, "Hey, like this is kind of absurd. Such and such. Susie is taken off. She's not. She's taking advantage of this. We're left holding the bag." How long did you let it go? And then at one point where you were like, "We're done." Was there like what was like that moment where you're like, "We gotta change this"? Like right? Like was there like some big moment? Like or were you just like, "I've had enough of people complaining"?
Probably. I always waited too long and let things go way too long. And however if you're a parent, you know what your tendencies are. You're either too strict, too rigid, and that's how you're going to be at work, or you're too loosey-goosey, need a little more structure. We are who we are wherever we go. And what happens is as your business grows and more is required of you, you have to level up. You have to address those shortcomings if you want to continue to grow. And so for me, the shortcoming was not enough structure, not enough rules to make a team successful.
Okay, so this is the part that I think is probably the hardest part that you had to go through. I'm very curious how you dealt with this. How hard was it to take that benefit away once it already existed?
Pretty hard. pretty hard.
Well, walk me through the discussion you had with the team and then how it was received.
We probably at that point were already doing a version of traction, which meant we as an entire team were meeting once a quarter for a day. And at those retreats, every single person on my team was able to talk about what was working and what was not working. And people were very honest. And so most likely, if I don't remember exactly, but if I had to guess how this went down, we were in a retreat. My A players who were super conscientious and kind of persnickety, and every single firm has these people, were putting it out there. They were frustrated. They were irritated. They didn't like the way this was working. They couldn't get their job done because so-and-so was doing blah, blah, blah. And during those discussions, I probably was like, well, guys, this maybe seems like it's not working. Maybe we should be trying something else. And that's probably how this decision was made. All things were kind of collective. I was probably too democratic. You know, at a certain point, that didn't work either. But early days, everything was a democracy.
Yeah, I think I early on made mistakes of like making it more like a democracy, and then finally I was like, nope, I'm done. This is not how this is working. It's not an effective way of leading a team. It's not. It's a really good way of steering the ship in the wrong direction. So I think it's interesting that you did that. What about the opposition? Did you lose anybody? Was anyone like vehemently like, this is absurd? Like, how did that part happen?
No, because we always still had that flexibility piece in the KPIs that really allowed people. It was probably, even after we put the vacation in place, there were probably still the persnickety people who still were like, so-and-so works from home too much.
Right. True.
I probably didn't solve anything, really. But it is much clearer, and there is a vacation policy, and you have a certain amount of paid time off, and you can use that for sickness, and you can use that for vacation, and if you need more, there's a short-term disability policy, and now we have to follow FMLA, and now things are like, here is what you need, here's what you can expect.
Okay, so what did you, now you just kind of hinted at, but like, what did you replace it with? Like, is it a modified system? Is it purely you have set time off? How do you determine all that? How do you track all that? How did you figure all that out?
We start with 3 weeks paid time off, and then I think once you hit 3 years employment, it goes up a week, something like that, and it goes all the way up to 6 weeks paid time off. And then if you're with us for 10 years, you get a whole sabbatical of paid time off.
Nice.
Now, not very many people will hit 10 years, but yeah, so that's what we came up with, like a progressive system.
And tracking. So you went from not tracking time essentially to tracking time. How big of an adjustment was that?
It's still a problem, honestly. So we have Gusto, and Gusto tracks people's paid time off and their available time, and you know, PTO is accrued as people work, and then they need to request paid time off through Gusto. HR handles that, but the part that's a little challenging is the managers have to make sure that there's coverage and that it's okay with the managers, because HR pretty much is like, if you have it, you take it, and if you don't have it, you still probably take it. It's just probably unpaid. And then there are some people who want more vacation than we provide, and then they go to, like, I have a lawyer who really wants more PTO than we provide, and so she is, I think, technically a part-time employee who works on commission. So I can be flexible, but the rules for a full-time employee who gets, you know, full-time benefits has to be the same from one person to the next person.
So this next part's kind of a two-part question. When you had the unlimited PTO, did you have a problem with people not taking vacation? And then the second part of this is, did you try to remedy that with the new system where you require certain people to take vacation?
We only roll over a certain number of hours, which encourages people to use their PTO. But
Okay.
I did not have a culture that was, nose to the grindstone, work, 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 nobody takes vacation. That wasn't an issue in my firm. I think that that's cultural. Like if you're
Mm.
in a firm that has, I don't know, a 2,600 hour requirement or whatever these huge law firms are, you can't leave. You can't. You can't leave and be successful. And if that's the people you're hiring and that's the culture, then you might have this issue of people don't take vacation. That was not mine.
Okay. So it sounds like would you say that the culture was healthy at the time?
Yeah, except for the freeloaders.
Sure. But other than that, and then what about now? How do you feel about the culture now versus the culture back then?
It's very different. I mean, we are 55 people spread out all over, mostly remote, whereas at that time we were under 10 and all in the same office together most days, sitting in a retreat every quarter. It's a very different culture. And for some people, that's probably a big loss.
Yeah.
But you can't, the culture of a firm that's 10 people it cannot be the same as a firm that is this size.
Not at all. Like you can't, like you don't even get to know each other as well. Like it's like you barely, once you get to like 20, it's like getting to know everyone's like really hard to do. Like, cause you can't spend all your time with every single person. It's just not possible.
No, it's not possible. So you have kind of your little work groups, people you work with on a daily basis, and you have that culture with that group. And then everybody's kind of got a little bit of subcultures. And then there is an overall culture. And the overall culture, even now, is still collaborative, flexible, supportive. All of those things still exist. It's just not the same. We don't go out to happy hour at least once a month. That doesn't happen.
Getting 55 people that are remote to do that would be,
Yeah.
unless you flew them all into one place, would be, very tough to do. If you look back to back then, what do you understand about unlimited PTO that maybe you didn't understand back then?
It's pretty naive. If you have a firm that has as many employees in different positions, unless you are hiring very differently than I'm hiring, maybe you are so cutthroat and so good at hiring that you get everybody in your firm who has the same level of commitment and dedication. But that seems impossible. That seems naive. And it seems more realistic to think that when you are hiring, some people are going to work and some people are not. Different people need different things. Different people have different expectations about what good enough is and what the standard is. And unless you spell it out for people what your expectation is, you're setting them all up to fail.
Given that response, the last two questions are going to be fun. Do you think there's a version of unlimited PTO that could work in the future? Or are you just completely out on it? Like are you done with it?
I don't see a reason for it. I don't know why I would do that. What's
Fair.
the advantage? Nobody has told me why we should be doing this.
Kevin has a completely different position that he believes that there is an advantage to it. I do find that these
But
answers,
you won't share it?
I will I will kind of share. Which is really interesting is like both of your views are really interesting because you will say that I'm just going to say it's not really your way. It's not really his way, but I'm just going to say it that way. It isn't like your way benefits you in the same way that he thinks that his way benefits him, which I think is really interesting about like culture and like he doesn't have the issues with freeloaders and things like that. And it doesn't sound like he cares as much as even if there were a freeloader, because like that's the policy, which is really kind of interesting. Here's my like pick a fight question. I asked him the same question too. What would you say to someone like Kevin who believes it can work?
I mean, good for you. Maybe you're just better at it than I am. I don't like, I just my lived experience is that it didn't work. And maybe it's because of me and my leadership style and my, I'm not like the best person at hiring. I don't know anybody who is, though. So
Sure.
if he's figured, I talk to a lot of law firm owners and a lot of law firm owners that are like bigger and medium sized. And I don't know any group of people, let's say 20 people or more, where loosey-goosey, unclear is going to work. Maybe if you're a completely remote firm and it's all KPI driven. As an intake person, you must process X number of leads. I don't care when you do it. You must get this number of people signed up. I don't care when you do it. Maybe if every single position in the firm had that structure, it could work. Work where you want, work when you want, meet these goals.
So, and that's kind of the approach that he does take to a certain extent, but they also have the sort of the policy of don't be an asshole kind of a thing. I can just tell you from like my leadership standpoint, I find it hard to manage that way, because if I do have someone that's taking advantage of it, what policy do I have to point to say you're doing it wrong? Like
Right.
you're being an asshole, and because you can't really say that they are. Now he doesn't, they don't call it, being an asshole. It's, they say, I can't remember. It's been a month since I've done that interview, but it is one of those things where like, you can never really say that because there is no policy. You've said that they can take as much time as they need. And so I find it difficult to manage that way, is what I would say. It's very difficult. And it's something I don't know if you ever encountered this issue, but because I kind of hinted at it, but the problem we had with it, because we did it early on too. And the problem I had was that people weren't taking vacation and so I think the reason was that people were afraid to. They didn't really think it was real. It was like this thing that we promised, and people didn't really believe that we were okay with it. And I think that was part of the problem with the policy. And that could say a lot of things about our culture at the time, where people just had a distrust of me or whatever. We were very small at the time, so we were like 5 people. So. But I just kind of had a different experience where like people just weren't taking it. Yours was that there were just people at freeloading, which was always kind of my concern too. So.
What your point, don't be an asshole, and what does it mean, is such a good one. Like, we have values, and the values haven't changed in a long time. But what we needed to do was we needed to spell out, okay, our value is growth. What does it look like specifically to embody this value, and what does it look like to not? And we had to do that. So for instance, if somebody asks you to take on something you haven't done before and you're unwilling to learn, you are not exhibiting a growth mindset. We expect you to have a growth mindset. That means you have to be working towards something, and it can be whatever you want it to be, but it has to be something. So we had to spell out, like, what do these visceral values mean in our culture and in practice, and that's been very helpful to people.
You made me just think about something that happened over the weekend. So my son, he's in competitive soccer, and they had all of the teams. He's a part of this organization that they have multiple teams, and they were all over the place on last Saturday and Sunday. And there were apparently there was a big issue in Kansas City. So my team wasn't in Kansas, or my son's team wasn't in Kansas City. They were in Columbia, or they were in Boonville with this tournament. And the coach sent out this video. It was kind of like lecturing everybody, because there were some players that were pouting because they weren't getting the playing time that they wanted. Whenever they were put on the field, they were pouting because they were not in the position that they wanted. When they were asked, some players, when they were asked to go back in because there were players that had gotten hurt, they said no because they were still tired. And he just basically said, listen, if we call on you and we see you over on the bench, you're just sulking over there, you're pouting, you're not being a very good teammate. When you're out there, you're sort of pouting. If we try to call on you because we need your help and you don't want to go back in the game, we take all these things into consideration. And I think it's the same thing whenever it applies to our firms too. It's like, if you're not willing to like pitch in, help out, do all these things, it kind of goes back to the culture. I know we're talking about unlimited PTO, but I do think it's all really important, because if you have teammates and it's unlimited PTO and you have people that are not willing to help each other out, they're like, no, my time's my time. And I'm going to take as much time as I want. I think if you have people like that, unlimited PTO will never work for you. It just will not work. You have to, like, whenever you have a more of a regulated system, it helps keep things like that in balance, so you don't have problems like that. At least that's my perspective.
Yeah. And, mobility is one of our values. People can work where they want, when they want, but we had to spell out, what does that come with? You're accountable to your team to communicate, to let people know where you are, what you're doing, to be available generally during work hours. If you're not, you need to tell people where you are. You need to meet your goals. If you don't do those things, you're not going to get the benefits of the mobility.
I like that. I like that core value, because we have a very similar core value. It's we can work whenever, wherever, so that we can meet our clients wherever they are. That's one of our core values, because it is in this current world, you almost have to have like that sort of a mindset to make it work. Okay. To wrap things up, any final words, any bits of advice for people that are thinking about unlimited PTO? What advice would you give to them?
It might work for a while. One thing I like to do is make things an experiment and specify it. We're going to try this. We're going to see how it works. This is what we're looking for in order to make sure that this is successful. If it is no longer successful, we'll reevaluate. And I think it's really helpful if you spell that out, because there's a lot of black and white people in this world, including your employees. And if they, there are people who will read something and say, but this is how it has to be. You said it. This is how it is forever. I really like to tell my children and employees, like, this is the current policy. This is why. It's subject to change. There'll be this much notice. Like, it's really helpful if you are not that person. You're not the black and white rules person. If you give those people enough information to give them predictability, even if the predictability is this may change.
Right. That's good advice. If people want to reach out to you and get your advice or pick your brain, ask you more questions, how do they get in touch with you?
I'm pretty easy to find. I'm on all the platforms and websites, and you can call my firm, so I'm easy to find.
Easy to find. Billie Tarascio, thank you so much. Appreciate it.
You know that feeling when you leave a conversation with someone and suddenly your brain is firing on all cylinders again? That's MaxLawCon. This October in Atlanta, you'll be surrounded by law firm owners who are building smarter businesses, dialing in their systems, growing their teams, using AI, improving intake, marketing, and finances, all of it. The conversations, ideas, and people in this room will push you to think bigger about what's possible for your firm. And honestly, there's just something different about being around people who are actually doing the thing. Go to maxlawcon.com and grab your ticket today.